Miss Nelson is back. Miss Nelson is back. One day, Miss Nelson told her class that she was going to have her tonsils out. "I'll be away next week," she said. "I expect you to behave." "Yes, Miss Nelson," said the kids in room 207. But recess was another story. "Wow," said the kids, "Miss Nelson is away. We can really act up." "Not so fast," said a big kid from room 309. "Haven't you heard of Viola Swamp?" Who? Said Miss Nelson's kids. "Miss Swamp is the meanest substitute in the whole world," said the big kid. "Nobody acts up when she's around." "Oh," said Miss Nelson's kids. "She's a real witch," said the big kid. "Oh," said Miss Nelson's kid. "I'll just bet you get the swamp," said the big kid. On Monday morning, Miss Nelson's kids were in their seats. They were very nervous. Some of them had not slept all weekend. "If we get the swamp, I'll just die," said one kid. They heard footsteps in the hall. Slowly, the knob turned and the door opened. It was Mr. Blansworth, the principal. "I shall personally take over this class," he said. Miss Nelson's class was so relieved. But they soon learned that Mr. Blansworth was not a lot of fun. All morning, Mr. Blansworth tried to amuse the class with his corny card tricks. "Oh, brother," said the class. This afternoon, Mr. Blansworth showed the class his favorite shadow pictures. "This is kid stuff," said the class. The next day, Mr. Blansworth demonstrated his favorite bird calls. They were not a success. And for 2 days, Mr. Blansworth showed slides of his goldfish, Lucille. Miss Nelson's kids had never been so bored. While dusting the erasers in the schoolyard, 3 of the ringleaders in 207 discussed the situation. "Something has to be done," they said. "We must get rid of Mr. Blansworth." And so they hatched a plot. After school, they painted and sewed and borrowed some old clothes. And they practiced some very difficult work in the backyard. The next day, they weren't in class. "That's too bad," said Mr. Blansworth. "They'll miss all the excitement." Mr. Blansworth was about to show the class his collection of ballpoint pens from all over the world when someone came to the door and slowly turned the knob, and the door opened. "Oh, look," said the class. "Miss Nelson is back." A tall and lumpy Miss Nelson tottered into the room. Mr. Blansworth was surprised. "You're back sooner than we expected," he said. The tall and lumpy Miss Nelson didn't speak. The kid said her throat must still be sore. "Are you sure you're well enough?" said Mr. Blansworth. "She's sure," said the kids. "Well, in that case," said the principal, "I'll be getting back to my office. Nice to have you back, Miss Nelson." And he left the room. "Hot dog!" cried the class. "We got rid of Blansworth. Now we'll just do as we please." At the stroke of 10, the kids from 207 left the building. No one stopped them. They went straight to the movies, where they saw The Monster That Ate Chicago twice. "This is really living," they said. Afterward, they went to Lulu's, where they stuffed themselves silly. But soon, they made a serious mistake. Heading back home, they passed Miss Nelson's house. Miss Nelson couldn't believe her eyes. "Those are my kids," she said in a scratchy voice. "What are they doing out of school? And who's that with them?" Miss Nelson telephoned Mr. Blansworth to see what was going on. "You're not Miss Nelson," said Blansworth. "Miss Nelson is back." And he hung up. Can't fool me, he said. Said Miss Nelson. "Something will have to be done." And she went to her closet. Back in 2007, Miss Nelson's kids were spending an agreeable afternoon. They were very pleased with themselves. We should do this more often, they said. They did not notice a figure in the hall. Slowly the knob turned, and they opened the door.
My name is Viola Swamp, said the lady in the scratchy voice.
Yipes, the kids cried, the swamp!
That's right, said Miss Swamp, and I'm here to whip the class into shape. Get back to those desks on the double.
The kids did as they were told. The kids from 309 were certainly right. Miss Swamp was a witch. She knew how to get results. The class did a whole week's worth of work in no time. We shouldn't have gotten rid of Mr. Blandsworth, they said.
Pipe down, said the Swamp, or...
Just as something out of the desk attracted her attention. It was a mask.
Aha! Said the Swamp. So that's your little game.
And she tried on the mask just as Mr. Blandsworth stepped into the room. Miss Nelson, said Mr. Blandsworth, I'm in the opinion that someone has been impersonating you.
Uh-oh, whispered the kids. You don't say, said Miss Swamp. Probably just some kids acting up. I'm sure it won't happen again.
And Mr. Blandsworth left.
And it won't, will it? Because the Swamp will be watching.
A minute later, Miss Nelson appeared. I'm back, she said. Hot dog, the kids cried, and we are glad to see you. Didn't you have fun with Mr. Blandsworth? asked Miss Nelson. They decided not to mention Miss Viola Swamp. But they wondered why Miss Nelson hadn't seen her in the hall. Why do you think they hadn't seen her? Well, Miss Nelson can't wait to be back in our school and wait to be back teaching you. You guys are awesome, and I miss you, and I hope you're having a great day. Bye.